Have you ever wondered about the Indian connection across Africa? From the bustling streets of Johannesburg to the serene beaches of Mauritius, Indians have played a significant role in shaping the continent's history and culture. In this video, we'll unravel the story of their present-day contributions and experiences. So let's go! As of 2021, Africa houses over 3 million people of Indian origin. That's how many of Indian descent call Africa home, making it the second largest Indian diaspora after China. Some members of the Indian race scattered across the African continent consist of both non-resident Indians, NRIs, who emigrated directly from India, and persons of Indian origin, PIOs, whose families have migrated generations ago, but they hold citizenship in their African homeland. The fascinating thing is how these communities hold on to their Indian heritage, because even to date, they still celebrate traditional festivals like Diwali, share their motherland's cultural beliefs, and feel a deep connection to both worlds. This sense of Indian identity is strongest in Mauritius, where over 60% of the population is of Indian descent. Likewise, South Africa, Reunion, Kenya, Tanzania, and Uganda are some of the countries that boast significant Indian populations. Interestingly, on mainland Africa, among the African countries with the most people of Indian descent, South Africa leads the pack with 2.5%, followed by Botswana with 0.66%, Kenya with 0.3%, Tanzania 0.28%, Mozambique 0.13%, and Zimbabwe 0.01%. The large Indian population dispersed across Africa has had a profound impact on the continent. They're not just significant consumers of resources, but also key figures who have shaped investment and enriched Africa's history. Africa's rich resources are a big attraction for India. South Africa's gold and diamonds, Uganda's oil, Tanzania's minerals, and so on are all prime targets for Indian investment. But this economic enjoyment isn't just one-sided. While India pumps money into Africa's resources, billions flow back the other way. The reason for this? The Indian Prime Minister sees places where Indians are resident as places where they can make great investments, and also indirectly impact the lives of their Indian race positively in those countries. So which countries have the most Indians? How did they come to be? And what are the key impacts they've had on these demographics? South Africa. Residents of South Africa with Indian roots are over 1 million, which is the largest in Africa, with Durban City being home to the largest concentration of Indians. The country is also the heart of Indian influence, and you can almost feel their presence in the architecture, history, religion, and so many other areas like the infamous curries and iconic bunny chow. However, it's important to point out that the story of Indian roots in South Africa starts way back in the 1600s, when some Indians came as slaves. Over time, they blended into local communities. Then in the 1800s, following the abolishment of slavery, two new groups arrived: indentured workers brought to work on farms, and free Indians who saw business opportunities in Africa. Many of these workers decided to stay after their contracts ended, which now led to them becoming the ancestors of most Indians in South Africa today. The indentured workers weren't just bringing muscle to South Africa in the 1800s, they also brought a whole new culture and religion. Since they hailed from Muslim-populated regions of western and southern India, they sparked a flame of Islam in South Africa. And their efforts weren't in vain, because today South Africa boasts a thriving Muslim community, particularly in Natal and the Western Cape. But Islam wasn't the only Indian religion to take root in South Africa. A vibrant segment of the Indian diaspora brought their unique faith, centered around one god and 10 gurus. This group is known as the Sikhs. But things got tough for them during apartheid, with the creation of unfair laws against Indians and other people of colour. However, this also brought the oppressed together, because they were fueled by a shared fight against injustice. This struggle gave birth to organisations like the Natal Indian Congress, co-founded by Mahatma Gandhi himself, which emerged in South Africa to lead the fight for equality. These cross-racial alliances became the foundation for a future South Africa united in freedom. Even with the arrival of new immigrants after apartheid's fall, the legacy of this shared struggle continues to define the identity of South Africans with Indian roots. Additionally, the cultural exchange between South Africans of Indian descent and the broader population has been mutually beneficial. It's actively enriching South Africa's social fabric, keeping Indian traditions vibrant in this new home. Walking the streets of South Africa, we talked to several Indians, learning firsthand about their experiences and other important things.
Probably the Durban accent and bunny chow.
Okay, so those will be like our festivals like Diwali or like Shivaratri. Those are our festivals from our Indian descent. And we do practice them ritualistically every year.
So older generations tend to be a lot more conservative, and now we live in a much more liberal South Africa, and there can be quite difficult intergenerational conflicts that happen, trying to communicate with our elders, and our elders trying to still instill the tradition and our own culture within us.
In Asia and Durban.
Indian history. My family came from indentured laborers. So I think it was great-great-grandfather came from India as an indentured laborer. Basically what prompted them to come to South Africa is the fact that they needed to provide for their family, and that South Africa was kind of a better life conditions what they thought they really get. Yeah.
Probably traditional clothing.
However, South Africa is just one chapter in the story of Indian influence in Africa. While it offers a fascinating example, the narrative unfolds differently across the African continent. East Africa also saw an influx of Indians brought in to build crucial infrastructure. East Africa, Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania. A common misconception surrounds the arrival of Indians in East Africa, that they came as slaves. However, history reveals a different story. In the early days of colonial rule, the British brought in around 32,000 indentured labourers, primarily Sikhs from Punjab, to tackle a monumental task, building the Kenya-Uganda Railway. This ambitious project, the first of its kind, aimed to connect Kenya to Uganda by rail. It stands as the key reason why Indians first arrived in East Africa, and why vibrant Indian communities persist today in cities like Nairobi, Kenya, and Kampala, Uganda. However, unlike the South African story, the majority of these workers returned to India after their contracts ended. Some died during labour, and only about 7,000 chose to stay and put down their roots. This difference highlights a crucial distinction. While South Africa's Indian population grew significantly due to indentured labourers who remained, East Africa only began to see a larger influx of free emigrants arrive later. This wave of newcomers, predominantly Hindus and Muslims from Gujarat, weren't bound by contracts. The Kenya-Uganda Railway became more than just a transportation route. It paved the way for a thriving Indian presence in East Africa. Following the railway's path, Indian communities established trading posts, forming the backbone of commerce throughout the region. This legacy continues to this day. However, East Africa's history isn't without its challenges. Ugandan dictator Idi Amin's draconian decree in 1972 forced the expulsion of Asians, including many Indians, within 90 days. This caused significant disruptions and hardship. Nevertheless, since the region's restoration, the Indian community in Uganda has demonstrated remarkable resilience. They have re-established themselves and become a crucial pillar of the Ugandan economy today. This is further strengthened by the positive relations between Uganda and India's Prime Ministers, Robina Nabanja and Narendra Modi. Another significant impact is the popularly spoken language in East Africa. Swahili is a blend of Bantu of indigenous Africa and Arabic, which is a major influence of the Islam culture the Indians brought with them. Also, since their settlements in parts of East Africa, the impact of the Indian communities have cut across so many areas, like Islamic education, creation of institutions, musical genres and dance known as batik and damals, and several other things. Today, countries such as Kenya, Uganda and Tanzania are home to thriving Indian businesses and communities, continuing a long history of cultural exchange fostered by the Indian Ocean trade boom. This boom spurred the rise of East African city-states like Mombasa and Kilwa, which still thrives as hubs of commerce and cultural exchange, attracting a diverse mix of traders and artisans till date. Let's now see how Indian communities have fared in other African nations, such as the island of Mauritius and the giants of Africa, Nigeria. Mauritius. As stated earlier, Indians make up the majority population here, a massive 60% that shapes the island's economic and political landscape. If ever there was a place other than Durban that seems like home to Indians away from their motherland, Mauritius is that place. It's one of the few places that they flourish tremendously in business, impact and influence. They're a backbone to the economy of Mauritius Island. Their rich culture has become deeply woven into the national identity, creating a unique Mauritian fusion. This dominance stems from the large-scale indentured labour system implemented by the British Empire. From 1834 to 1920, Britain transported roughly 500,000 Indian workers to Mauritius to work in sugarcane fields. Notably, these labourers primarily came from the Bihar and Uttar Pradesh regions of India, with additional groups hailing from the southern provinces. The arrival of the Indo-Mauritian population in Mauritius left a lasting mark on the island's culture. The impact is so much that Mauritius honours this legacy by celebrating the arrival of the indentured workers on the 2nd of November as a national holiday. Finally, the giants of Africa. Indians in Nigeria, West Africa. Nigeria boasts one of the largest Indian diaspora community in Africa, with over 800,000 people of Indian descent residing there. This significant presence stems from a long and rich history of trade and cultural exchange between the two nations. Throughout Nigeria's colonial period and transition to democracy, India has fostered positive relations with this West African nation. This strong bond is further evidenced by the over 100,000 thriving Indian-owned businesses operating in Nigeria today. Leveraging the established trade and cultural ties, India has introduced another successful export to Africa, Bollywood cinema. Surprisingly, Bollywood enjoys immense popularity, not just within Indian communities, but also among the broader population in West Africa, particularly in Nigeria and Ghana. This fascination has even inspired several movies such as Namaste Wahala within this region. But the Indian influence extends far beyond entertainment. It has demonstrably strengthened religious and cultural bonds, with some Nigerians embracing Hinduism due to the efforts of missionary groups like ISKCON. While most Nigerian Hindus reside in Lagos, dedicated centers for Hinduism can also be found in Ibadan. Further exemplifying the nature of Indian influence, organizations like the Sri Satya Sai Seva organization actively promote the teachings of Satya Sai Baba. This organization embodies India's dedication to social welfare by offering charitable services like free education and medical care. As we've seen, India's impact on West Africa, particularly Nigeria and Ghana, goes far beyond demographics. It has significantly shaped the continent's cultural tapestry, economic landscape, and even religious beliefs. In summary, beyond Africa, India's influence reaches far and wide. From trade to entertainment and labor, Indians are woven into the fabric of Africa's history, and their rich culture has helped in one way or another shape Africa in what it is today. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more of the same.